It's a, I love that poem because it explains many of my delving into relationships. I go in there not knowing if I even want to have the courage, let alone have the courage to go into that relationship. And so we sit lonely, separated, but love draws us towards. Where did love somehow work in your life, drawing you into some place that you didn't think you were ready to go? And trying not to turn this into just the romantic love, which we use as the height of love. Think about all the different loves of your life. You know, your family members, your friends, your neighbors. How does, where have you had that timidity that it talks about it, and where have you been drawn past it?
I can share.
Yes.
So I have a best friend right now that I've known for about 20 years. And when I first met her, it was through music. And I was singing with a group of gals, and they asked her to join us to play because she plays different instruments and she's really good. And she had made a CD with somebody. She had a couple CDs out, and I was very intimidated by that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was happy she was joining us, but I didn't think we really had anything in common, or, you know, or I just thought she was on a different level than me. You know, I was a mom, I had young kids, you know, all this stuff. And then we just connected and became really good friends. And I would have not picked her as somebody to become friends with. And now she's my best friend.
Yeah.
And
Nice when that happens.
I still am amazed at that. In fact, I still joke around with her, like, remember, I didn't even think you'd want to talk to me because you had 2 CDs out, and I was just like this kitchen musician, you know, because I belong to the TKMA kitchen musicians. And it's just funny how you can think somebody's like above you.
Yeah. The other poem starts off kind of the same as this one. Love bade me welcome, yet my soul drew back, guilty of dust and sin. And that brings up the negatives of some of the past religions that we've rejected. But the idea of it is that sometimes when love beckons, we put all the list of why we're unqualified for, why this person wouldn't want to. And that's really easy to do. Either about ourselves or about that other person, because that's the other kind of list we sometimes make. And love, truthfully, doesn't care about that list. Somehow draws us beyond it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask the first question that I ask a little bit differently, that may open it up. When was it that you felt love? Who was it that helped you to learn love? I'll give you one example from my own life. I had 2 grandmothers that were absolutely, completely different. One was the wrap you in her arms, little tiny thing, but wrap you in her arms, bake you cookies, everything. I'm going to take care of you. The other was a frontierswoman. Literally, she was born in the 1890s in rural Arizona. She, you know, 1-room cabin without plumbing or electricity. She was a frontiers person. So she was gruff. We called her Nan. She had opinions about things. And when I was 13 years old and hitting the beginning of my rebellion, and I, you know, was growing my hair out, I came down to Arizona to live with her for a summer. And she decided that she needed to have my hair cut. All right. As in a not unexpected way, right? She knew it. So she brought me over to Uncle John's house and sat me down, and he's beginning to cut. And whatever she was seeing in my face told her to stop, and stop Uncle John and say, no, let's let him keep it the way it is. which was completely outside of who Nan was. And yet she did that for that 13-year-old rebellious kid.
Wow. Mhm.
Yeah. Evidently, it wasn't outside who she was. It was outside
Evidently.
who you thought she
Yeah,
was.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
But I look at that and I go, if Nan could
Hmm.
have done that, I can do some of the challenging places.
Mhm.
That's one of the ways where love definitely formed me.
Mhm.
How about you? Who helped form you in love?
I think, interestingly enough, and I was thinking about this answer to your earlier question. I ended up with a freshman English teacher who was taking over for the English teacher that died. And she came in and she was fairly young and vivacious. And the teacher that we had was pretty old school, you know. And I was caught off guard by her. And she was, as it came out in things, she was Roman Catholic, I was Protestant. She was very kind of demonstrative. She had studied to be a nun for a while, and then she got married. And she would call on me. She would like put me on the spot, and I'd have to deal with. We were doing Julius Caesar and Great Expectations, and just all. And then it turned out I was certainly kind of afraid of her, and thought that I really had nothing in common with her, and I just kind of wanted to keep a low profile and get a good grade, But she and another teacher, kind of similar MO, a guy, would start meeting with students after school, and they would talk politics, religion, all kinds of things, and they called out of us our opinions. There were about 4 or 5 of us, and they respected our opinions.
Yeah.
And it's like she and this other teacher gave me voice.
Yeah.
And I felt, I don't think I would have called it love at that time, but it was such a kind of respect being held in there that it was a kind of love. And those 2 teachers really shaped me in a lot of ways, just in terms of the inner, my inner presence, so it was they were great for me. Yeah.
I'm not certain that they would have called it love either, but it definitely was.
Right.
And it definitely demonstrates the last line of the poem that says, "But it is only love which sets me free."
Yeah.
And them being willing to do that, sometimes in spite of you, right? Your hesitancy, your undesire to do that, but pushing you definitely drew you into that free space.
Yeah, it did. It did.
Nice.
Has impacted me forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Who else has taught you love?
My box turtle, Daphne. She's the first box turtle I ever adopted. So I got her in 95. I still have her today. But she came from the wild, and I found her in pet store. I had no idea that they were taking some from the wild at that time to sell them in pet stores. So it was the only time I ever bought a box turtle anywhere. But anyhow, what was really interesting is, here she was this, wild creature, and I was in an apartment, so I had to keep her in a terrarium. And then I would get her out on the back porch, for some time during the daytime, or take her out and let her walk on the grass. But it became really interesting because it wasn't all that long, and she tuned into me so much that I would, I'd be, having something going on. It was really hard for me emotionally during that period of time. I was dealing with a lot of health issues and financial, and it was just all kind of crashing down around me a little while after I'd gotten her. And I remember at times I would just be really upset, but it's like it hadn't risen to the fore yet. I didn't know what was going on. And I would find she'd be staring at me, just endlessly staring at me. And then suddenly I realized what I'm upset about, and I'd have tears or whatever I needed to have to express it and feel it and really work through it. I'd turn around and look at her. She's looking the other way. She's doing something totally else. And this has happened over and over again, and how, as a wild creature, it didn't take her, but what, a few months to start doing this.
Yeah.
To tune into me like that. And
Yeah.
that was just so amazing. And I've always just felt such deep love for her because she could tune into me that way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The thing about animals is it's real easy for us to think we're the ones with souls. We're the ones with, and it doesn't take long to realize that it's not that easy.
Yeah.
that they have something about them and who they are and what they do that is just incredible.
Yeah, I've never had any doubt that animals had souls, but I think I've always picked up on that since I was a kid and first connected with animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe it's that type of thing that we need to do with each other too, because mid-election, I was really doubting the souls in some people. You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
and maybe the same way that we can see that animals have something there, maybe not what I define or how I define it, but maybe that's how we can reach into those spaces between us and the ones that are most difficult for us to love.
Yeah.
The problem is, of course, whenever they do whatever it is that is not so fun. Our dog, every once in a while, who was not raised really well, his name is Anubis, the Greek god of death. He was raised in an apartment and sometimes left in the apartment way too long, and so he learned to poop on the carpet.
Mm-hmm.
Do not like it when he does that still.
Mm-hmm.
And and I know that puppy dog loves me and I love him back, but every time he does that, it is difficult to love.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
And so that's the type of thing we have to figure out what to do with. When is it that your neighbor isn't taking care of the fence between you? When is it that neighbors playing music that's too loud? When is it that the garbage in the front yard is overwhelming? Whatever it happens to be. And how do we love in that moment?
Yeah, I think that, like, as far as when you're in a relationship, whether you're in a marriage or in a friendship or working with people at work, it's never always great.
Yeah.
You know,
Which is
and
what
there's
we'd like,
always-
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always times when you're going to get on each other's nerves, and you kind of have to look past that to realize that you really love them. But there's definitely times where you feel like you don't.
Yeah. But see, that's why I love our motto, choose love, because it's not because that person right now is worthy of love or easy to love or because you want to love them. It's that you choose love anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, love is always a choice, and we think it's an emotion because we fall in love. And that's easy falling in love. Choosing love when the dirty underwear is on the floor is a little more challenging,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And yet that's what true love is when we look in those ugly spaces of each other and still choose each other.
Mhm.
So when is it that you have had to dare to be brave, as Maya Angelou says? How in your life that has love challenged you? I think one of the places where I feel that on a regular basis, and in fact, this is where I met you, Siri, is when your mom died and you had to decide how to continue to know love in the midst of that obvious ending of the present space of relationship. And all of those kinds of things. And it doesn't have to be death. It can be my best friend moves across the country, right?
Mhm.
Where's love now in the midst of it?
Mhm. Mhm.
How about for you? When is it challenged you?
Well, to kind of keep with the semi-political kind of the different values. I can remember big backstory, so you don't need that, but we're in a big meeting in Nebraska of all kinds of United Methodist clergy. And there has been one of our clergy who has performed a union between two women, and the whole
Not everyone was in agreement.
no, in fact, yeah, this is in Nebraska, which is South Central jurisdiction, not the Western jurisdiction. And it was, so we're in this meeting, and I was part of the group that was supporting this pastor. In fact, I was his district superintendent, and we were trying to talk through some of this. And one guy stands up and just rips into me about, how could I do this? I was destroying the church. Where did I get these crazy ideas? Why had I chosen to support this person and these two women? It was just, yeah, it was very devastating to me, and called into judgment my values, my faith, that kind of thing. After the meeting was over, I decided that I needed to go talk with him. I really don't like this guy. I mean to tell you.
Some people are not easy to like.
Not share values,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But he had like put some kind of question out there, like, where does this come from that you're so evil, blah, 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 And so I went over and talked to him, not easily. I mean, I was so angry and hurt and scared, but I went over and talked to him and told him some things about kind of my story, the church I grew up in, and how it was in a changing neighborhood, and we had come together to struggle around issues of racial justice, and that this had been a lifelong journey for me, issues of justice, and that my parents had passed that along to me, and I just shared those things with him. And amazingly enough, he said something like, well, I had no idea. We did not become friends, but I felt like the fact that I had the courage to go tell him my story actually created some kind of opening in him that he was able to say something like that. Anyway, that was, I don't do that often. I
Yeah.
don't have that kind of courage often, but I
No.
did in that one situation. So,
But what a great story, because that is exactly what I think love is trying to call us to. Right?
Mhm.
In the African tradition, there's a phrase called Ubuntu. Have you heard of that?
mhm,
Sounds
Ubuntu,
familiar.
Ubuntu is this idea that we are part of one another. And so if you have done something wrong, that it's not just your sin, your fault, your crime, but that it is ours as well. And so how do we sit in that space with each other when you've hurt, and how do I take some of that load, and how do we come to carry each other in that moment, that we create each other is essentially what Ubuntu is about, that we continue to create in each other the best because we sit with each other in the worst. And Susan, it sounds like that's what you did, is that in the midst of what could easily separate, you chose to say, maybe not only that defines us. But I think the best of our Christian theology, or the core of our Christian theology, sometimes it's not the best because sometimes it's used very wrong, is that stuff which uses words that we would not typically use at St. Francis. That here's Jesus, the one who takes away the sins of the world. But the whole idea of that at its core is that, okay, I don't have to look at you and see the wrong that you are because Jesus took away that. What else? How else can I see you? Who else are you besides those obvious evil things that I see right now? And I like that idea of trying to live in that space. I don't always live in it. I don't know about you. Maybe you guys do that perfectly. But,
sure.
but at least that's what I feel like I'm trying. I try to do when I'm my most intentional, is I try to say, who is this person and how is it that I see them, not for the words that they're speaking right now, the stupid asinine words that I don't like that they're saying right now, or
Mhm.
how do I see something different than that? How do I hear their story and realize, oh, that's part of why you're doing what you're doing?
Mhm,
Mhm.
It's tough, isn't it? But that's what love is. And the hard part is that we have too much of love that comes from the Cinderella type of space,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
The happily ever after space. And that kind of spoils our ability sometimes to sit in other spaces like that. It does help, though, if you remember that Cinderella was trying to love her evil stepsisters, who
Mhm.
did not deserve,
Mhm.
right?
right.
and that part of that story is that type of space.
Yeah. Sometimes until you said that, I hadn't thought dismiss a lot of those stories
Uh-huh.
because of the, but climax, and she ends up with the prince, where there are a lot of things woven in that if we paid attention to, might be much more helpful to us, much more instructive.
It would be. But as in all things, choosing to be aware of each other, choosing to be aware of the moment is important, even when it's difficult.
You know, something, I'm sure you all read it too this week about the defacing of the Anne Frank statue.
Hmm.
I can't remember where that was, but someplace there they wrote Nazi symbols on it.
Mhm.
And then the next day there were people had brought flowers and all kinds of things.
Mhm.
It was kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Confront hate with love, basically.
Yeah.
The hard
Yeah.
part is that we teach hate to each other really easily for whatever reason. This week we had this story about a crowd in Washington D.C. who vandalized two historically Black churches. One of them a United Methodist church, pulled down their Black Lives Matter
Oh, right.
things
Yes.
and set them on fire. At least part of why that can happen is because you tell the story, Black Lives Matter is bad enough that whatever I do is justified
Yeah.
in the face of it. And to be frank, we all do that to some degree back as well, don't we? And so we justify our hate, we justify our actions because they deserve it. They're worse than that. And love, I think, tries to say, no, that's not true.
Mhm.
That somehow what we want to do is choose something they don't deserve.
Mhm.
Yeah, the booklet was talking about what image is a perfect illustration for you of hate.
Yes.
And I was just thinking about KKK rallies and cross burnings and lynchings and things like that, and trying to figure out how do you love those folks that are such a symbol of hate for me.
Yeah.
And the same for me with the Nazi symbol.
Exactly.
That's such a hate symbol to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
A theologian, and I can't remember who he is, Susan, maybe you'll remember, said this though. If God cannot love Hitler, if God cannot save Hitler, then God cannot do that for me either. And I think that always hits me strongly, because it's like somehow I have to admit that one of those symbols which means so strongly hate and the opposite, God still somehow includes them in that circle of love. How? I don't know. But the all-encompassing love of God says they are there. The hard part about religion is that oftentimes we don't really believe in that all-encompassing God. We believe that we say things like, God loves you so much that he sends you to hell because that's what we want. And that's just not love, right? But we do the same thing, don't we? How many have wished about some of your neighbors that they would go to some warmer place?
Warmer than Tucson?
Talking about Yuma.
I've wished people that are protesting the virus, the mask mandates, that they would get the virus, but that's mean and evil too. I know it.
But it is really hard not to do that.
Yeah.
You know, if people are saying, I don't want to wear a mask, I don't want to take a vaccine, then let's just make sure you get no medical care when you get sick.
Right.
And that's not very loving.
Christian. That's not very Christian.
It's not very Christian. But it sure feels normal when I think that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have that thought and you know it's not a good thought, and you know you don't really wish that, you just think it for a minute. Well, then I hope you get the virus and find out that it's real.
Yeah. But see, I think that's part of what Maya Angelou said that near the end of this poem, when she said that love costs all we are and ever will be. Because it means that if I'm truly going to love, I have to figure out how to try to reconcile these types of struggles.
Mhm.
and they don't reconcile with the click of fingers. It takes hard work and a lot of intentionality. It helps if you think about her other poem. Did you read the other poem? It's called In and Out of Time.
Mhm.
And basically what that talks about is this idea of that love being more eternal than just the between me and you. That somehow that love has been going on. And she puts it in the framework of you and I all through, right? You freed your braids, gave your hair to the breeze. It hummed like all these I and you type of terms, but it's larger than just that. It's saying that somewhere back before us, already love was existing between us. And somehow after us, love will still exist. And sometimes we have to get into that type of mode. And that will take me out of, okay, I have to fix your today politics. I have to, fix that you stepped on my toe today. It takes us out of that mode and puts us into a larger picture mode of. And I think that helps.
Mhm.
Doesn't quite fix some of the people that I talk to on Facebook, but maybe in the longer view it does.
Maybe you shouldn't talk to so many
Yeah, maybe.
people like that, Jim.
You may be absolutely right.
That's his calling.
Evidently, yeah, evidently.
That's his calling.
Being in the midst of people, though, will always challenge us. Will always challenge us. It's just kind of the nature of being in the midst of it. But one of the phrases that I love the best from the first poem is, "Love strikes away the chains of fear from our souls."
Yeah.
And part of the reason why those people bug me is the chains of fear that are still there. For whatever reason, we have those chains for a lot of reasons. Many of them very important reasons. When someone is attacking somebody that I'm trying to protect, I fear that person is going to, the one I'm trying to protect is going to be hurt again. And so I do get angry at them, but it is a fear that is driving me as well. And maybe I have to do something, but I have to try to figure out how to do it without it being dictated by those chains of fear.
Yeah, because don't you think, or at least I think, that the people who do the swastikas, the people who burn the crosses, whatever, they are so driven by fear.
Uh-huh. And don't seem.
There's a way.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
There's a way we have that in common.
Yeah. And the hard part is it's really easy to see how they don't seem disposed to be able to even recognize their fear, let alone want to do something about it. But it makes me think every single time, how am I doing the same thing back? How is it that I'm really reacting out of some fear? And maybe that's not the majority driver in my life, but is it there? And is there some way I can turn that off in my interaction with this person? Because at least part of what love calls us to do is to be in those relationships, because if somebody is hurting somebody that we care about, we should be there to help. But it puts us in the confrontation of this person and this person. How do I love both? So there's a benediction that is often said at the end of services, and it's a great benediction that I think mirrors the best of this In and Out of Time poem, that kind of tries to take us back to the larger picture. And it says this: "Go and love as you have been loved." Doesn't mean as you are being loved right now only. Remember all the other people. Remember the grandma Nans in your life, right? that loved you and didn't cut your hair even though she really wanted to, right? That did something at some point or another that showed that you were more important than just that moment. And then try to live out of that type of love in this moment. Go and love as you have been loved. And if we can do that, maybe we can resolve some of the struggles, right? Because we've all had magnificent loves in our life, haven't we?
Mhm. Yes.
And that will help us.
Mhm.
All right, my friends, thank you for your time.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Hey,
Good to be with all of you.
let me
I
tell
got
you
a
what.
quick question.
Yes,
So because we're not, next Thursday is Christmas Eve.
right. Next Thursday, we will be at 7 o'clock live on
Right.
Facebook.
So we won't be doing this at all next week, or if
We
we
will
want
not.
to attend, are you going to do the Tuesday and Wednesdays or
No.
no?
Nope, not at all.
No more, no more. This is
No
it.
more. This is the
This
last
is
time.
it, huh?
Yep, this is
This
it.
is
Say
it
goodbye to one
until
another.
Christmas Eve. We'll see you on Christmas Eve.
Well, it's, since I don't know, since I know so few people, this is nice for me. So I know 2 more people
Nice.
because of this.
Nice.
So
There you
it's been
go.
great.
Yeah.
So let me show
Yeah,
you
this
the
has
next.
been-
Let me show you the next book I'm gonna do when we start again in the in January, and it's gonna start. I can't remember which day. The second week of January, maybe the 12th or something,
Okay.
something like that. It's called. I just love the title. It's called Revolutionary Love, and then the subtitle says A Political Manifesto to Heal and Transform the World.
Oh, that sounds
Right?
good.
Even if none of the stuff inside is worthwhile, talking about that title,
That's a
trying
great
to figure
title.
that out is worth it, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
And,
that's a
and
great
so
title.
that's the book we're going to do. The author's name is Michael Lerner, and so if you get a chance to pick that up, do that, and we'll start talking about it in January.
And so, Jim, do you do the same thing where you do a number of different groups
What I'm
at
going to
different
do is
times?
I'm going to do this 2 different times. One on Tuesday at 3. Yeah, Tuesday at 3, and then Thursday at 7. And then I'm going to, in a couple weeks after that, I'll start another class that'll be at 2 other times. So that's the plan.
With the same book, you mean?
No, different book.
Oh, with a different book.
So
Okay,
I'll be doing 2 different classes, but 2 sections of each class.
okay.
If that makes sense.
Mhm, mhm,
Yeah.
All right.
mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
good night.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Merry
Been nice.
Christmas.
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
Bye-bye.
We
Bye.
won't see each other next week, but we'll maybe all be looking at the same thing.
That's
We'll see you
right.
on Zoom. I think we'll see you all on Zoom if you're there.
Yeah, come to the service at 7 on next week.
Christmas Eve is Zoom.
All right.
Is it?
It
Yes.
is. We're doing
It
a
is.
Zoom Christmas
Okay.
Eve. So that we
Okay.
can be live with each other. And then we're going to record it. So if you want to stay up till 11 and watch it and have it be a midnight mass, you can do that.
No,
See,
thanks.
Okay.
All
All
there's
right.
a lot of flexibility in this time, isn't there?
That's
There
right.
is. There is.
All
All
right.
right.
Take care.
Night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Yep.
Bye.